Oops, I somehow accidentally did the exact same thing again as I did last week. You know, last week, 2 years ago, when I said next week I'm going to make videos more regularly because that's what I wanted to do, I accidentally just kind of procrastinated on that for about 2 years. And prior to that, making of two videos, it had been about 6 or 7 years. So the way that fuck, I'm stumbling and stuttering and really struggling to make content, but that's why I'm trying to do this. I'm not going to edit the part out where I start getting anxious because the whole exercise that I'm trying to achieve here is reestablishing that this is normal, this is easy, this is a comfortable thing, and this is what I want to do. What does that mean? It means that it's important. Why is it important? It doesn't matter why it's important. Nothing does. Nothing matters. Now I want to bail. Should I bail? To bail or not to bail? That is the question. It's a question I would ask Batman. Do you get it? I seriously need to practice this more. It's a meditation exercise. That's what this is. This is raw. This is learning. This is recovering from failure. This is bombing in a sense. This is me booing myself in my own head and then trying to come back from it. It's a brutal experience, but it's so necessary. I think that for so long I have tried to put off doing this because I knew that it would feel awkward to do. It really doesn't feel nice, but it's an essential part of learning. Like, you can't get better at something without failing at it and then seeing why you failed, trying something and seeing why it doesn't feel right, and then trying something different and then seeing that that feels right. Did you know this? I didn't know this. I for most of my entire life have just known how to do everything and never done anything badly. So the fact that I had to learn how to learn things and to trust that that is actually a process that works. If you never knew this, that's a little tip for you. That's what I want to try and do here. I want to provide tips. Not the kind of tips that you might expect, but tips that are useful to living a better life. Or do I? I don't think I do. That doesn't sound interesting or fun. And that's really all I would ever want to do on the internet. Have you ever had this strange compulsion where you know there's something you need to do, and you know roughly what it is, but you just don't know how to do it? That's the situation I'm in right now, and I have been since probably 2006. That was the time that I started this YouTube channel. And at that time, I started the channel because I knew that that's it. I want to make videos. I love watching videos at that time. I was very inspired by everyone. At the time, it would have been, I guess, this is an interesting, fuck. Let me try this again. I'm not going to restart. I'm just going to try and recover from this. The key to being interesting is to be interested in what you're saying. So how can you be more interested in what you are saying? You have to, I think, really sell it to yourself. You have to believe that what you're saying is worth saying, and you want to know what you're going to say next. You want to believe that it's a product worth buying. It reminds me a lot of this fucking audiobook that I heard this quote in a place. How is the best way to say this? Is there a best way to say this? Is there a right way to say this? I'm trying so hard to think. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe not thinking is the right solution. Maybe you should just completely have no brain, smooth it out, don't give a shit. Brain being smart, like, who gives a shit? That's dumb. That's so smart that it's dumb. That's so dumb that trying to be smart is dumb. Trying to think through things and be analytical and being clever and cocky. That's so boring. I can't be interested in that. I think that's what I'm trying to say here, is that nobody cares, because I don't even care. Like, I wouldn't even care to try and get to the end of that sentence. I was just trying to say there's this tip that I overheard once on an audiobook that said the difference between a salesman and a con man is that a con man will try and sell you something that he himself doesn't believe in, whereas a salesman, he is selling something where to him it's something he would buy. So every salesman makes the first sale to himself. If he believes in the product, then he can sell it to anyone, whereas a con man is just lying to you. So the difference is, one of them's lying, selling you bullshit that they wouldn't buy. Therefore, it's a scam. Whereas a salesman is a good, honest, hardworking man who will sell you something because he believes in it and he would buy it. Now I'm really struggling to buy my own bullshit, so that's a good sign. That means that if I'm down here right now, there's a far way to go up and improve on this. But that's the point, is that you have to just go in and try. You have to make an attempt and fail. It doesn't feel nice. There have been, at least, let's not exaggerate, maybe 15 times in this video where I'm at, like, fucking 8 minutes in now. I wanted to stop several times, but I decided that as a punishment, as a necessary learning experience, to continue and just see what happens, see if it recovers. And the longer it goes on, and the more obvious it is that it's not going to recover, the more interested I get in the video. Like, I've become more interested now in seeing how much I can continue to fuck up. Can't even speak. I said continue. That's like a vaginal thing. Like, this to me is a great example of how I planned to make a video that talks about, like, the chronology of everything that's happened in the past 8 years. Give some kind of, like, stoic analysis about how life changes, become a different person. It's important to reconnect with the past, but not to get stuck there. All of this kind of shit. And then talk about how, hey, isn't it funny that there's, like, a bunch of shit in the background? And then I planned to transition from that into talking about how the true essence of the video would not be what's in the background. It would be what's in the foreground. And then not even on a visual level, but on more like an auditory level. So the whole point of that would be to try and explain the fact that, you know, that there doesn't need to be any video at all. It's just audio. So why is there any fucking video at all? There doesn't need to be any audio either. Like, that's the punchline, right? It sucks, so it should stop. But at this point, I feel more committed to just continuing out of spite, like spite for myself, spite for you if you're still watching this. If I upload a video like this and somebody gets to this point in the video, it's kind of amazing to me. If you didn't just like skip through it, I then start to ask the question, who are you and why are you doing this? Like genuinely, it makes me wonder kind of why such a person exists, and then I guess I start to realize why the world is the way it is, because you're putting up with this, subjecting yourself to this, and you don't really need to. It's like that other quote about you deserve what you tolerate. That's the story of my life, the story that I'm not going to tell because it's not interesting. But the other point that I'm trying to make is that there is no point. It's the attempt to be interested in what you're saying in order to be interesting. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that a fun quote to think about? I'm thinking about the quote right now. Thinking about you have to be interested in order to be interesting. Thinking about how you deserve what you tolerate. Yeah. I feel bad right now because I'm doing bad. And I think that that's a perfect symbiotic relationship. If you're doing something that you know is bad and you feel bad, that's actually a good thing, because it shows that at least some part of your psychology is working correctly, I think, to tell you that you should just stop doing it, or that you need to keep doing it but do it better. At this point in this video, I think that I don't really know what I need to do this better. I don't want to end up talking about just random things. I don't want to talk about just my existence. I think that making commentary on things is what I wanted to do, but in an interesting, entertaining way. Being intellectual is obviously not the right way to make YouTube videos. For so long I thought that's what I would like to do, but I see these types of videos on the internet and I get recommended them, and at a certain point I lose interest because there's no reason to try and intellectualize things and to constantly be in this headspace of wondering about why things are the way they are. I think just having fun is the most important thing to do. And so the fact that I've forgotten how to have fun is kind of my new life goal on rediscovering that. I'll bring it back now to what I actually wanted to talk about in this video, which was the fact that in 7 years I've changed so much as a person that I don't remember who I used to be. And that it sounds very cliche because most people really do just intuitively get that. Like I think most people know that they're not the same person as they age. They I guess feel different, and so that it becomes obvious to a lot of people. You know that you're not the same person because you look different, you're in a different position, a different role, a different body, and so on, surrounded by different people with different objectives. But I never really noticed that happening for the most part for about, I'd say, 23 years from being born until finishing university. I kind of felt like the same person. It's only afterwards, when I was thrown into the real world, whatever that is, whatever that means. I'll tell you what that means. That means society. That means civil society. That means the area in which people do jobs, and I'm talking just in the Western world, more specifically England, which is the only country that I've ever lived in. So that's my experiences growing up as somebody who lived on YouTube. I lived in the internet world. I didn't really live in England. I had a house in England, different parts of England, my parents' house. But the place where I lived mentally, my social space, has always been the global internet, YouTube, Discord, back in the day, Skype, Omegle, those other chat things where you press randomize and go to a different chat space. Web forums, that was a thing. Facebook, back when people used to use that to like talk to each other. These social spaces were my world, and now for the past however many years, I've had to kind of live in a world that I just don't feel like I belong in. On the internet, at least, it seemed to make sense. So people had their own spaces where they could do and say whatever they wanted to. You could have a community that was focused on something that you all were interested in. And it kind of was very voluntary as well. Like, you weren't forced to be part of the internet or any community. It was just something you did when you felt like it. Oh yeah, the other thing that I forgot to add to that list of forums and communication places was games. Like RuneScape, World of Warcraft, these big MMORPGs, just in case you didn't know what those games were, a massively multiplayer online role-playing game with chat rooms and a bunch of stuff for people to socialize whilst doing. That's what RuneScape originally was intended to be, just a collection of activities in a virtual world that people could go and do whilst they talk to each other. The whole point of it was to be social, not necessarily to be about the skills. So that would be like fishing, woodcutting, and mining rocks, and then processing those materials. But that's not what I'm discussing here. It's about the focus being in those games on people communicating and feeling like part of a virtual world. And that's the space that I have mostly lived in. And it's what I think allowed me to feel like I was the same person on the same mission for so long. Until the necessity of wealth generation in order to survive came about. That has definitely been very unfun. And that's not the scope of this video, where I talk about living in a hut in the woods. It's not something I've done. It's something that I've been inspired by, not necessarily with the same outcome as the Unabomber, in which he decided that he didn't like society and would destroy it. This is an oversimplification of the principle, because I think that the focus is more on the technology and how it's changed the world for the worse, and simply trying to look at ways in order to improve the technology. The simplest solution is to just get angry and destroy it, but I don't think that terrorism works, so I'm not advocating for it, and I would advocate against it if that makes a difference. If there's any bonus points for saying that terrorism's not a good idea, I definitely think that it's worth doing just to see what happens. I mean, it's worth advocating against terrorism to see what happens, but advocating against it, not that terrorism's worth doing. But I mean, hey, you never know. Like, this is what I'm trying to say with doing this video, is that you don't know until you try. So maybe in a roundabout way, that's the conclusion, is that we should try terrorism. I've never thought about trying it. I've never wanted to try it, but that's usually the brain and the body's way of telling you that you need to do something. You get more from going out of your comfort zone. You voluntarily expose yourself to something that you don't want to do, then you grow as a person. So yeah, maybe, maybe blow things up. Well, maybe don't, because I don't want to get in trouble. That's another thing, is this constant fear of getting in trouble. That's another thing that the real world has, but the internet world that I grew up in does not have. In the virtual spaces, there's really no consequence to your action. The worst thing that can happen to you in a virtual space is that you get banned, you get removed, you get deleted. What happens in the real world? Well, you get banned, you get removed, you get deleted, and then that's it. You don't get to go to a different world. In the virtual space, you get banned from one server, you just go to another server. There are no consequences to your actions, but in the real world, there are. That's the conclusion. That's why I don't like it, is because it sucks and I don't want to grow up. I think it's probably the only constructive thing I can say about this, is that growing up sucks, and it took me a lot longer to grow up than my peers. And for whatever reason, I'm still resistant to it. And so this attempt at capturing something that was relevant in youth is definitely a good, healthy coping mechanism. I don't think that I want to do this just for the sake of having content or for making money, because this doesn't make money, and I don't need to produce content. I never made this a dependency. I don't need the attention either. I think that, as I say, that there are other ways, especially in the real world. I think that there is too much attention. You get too much scrutiny living in the real world. That was another aspect about living in the digital space that made it better, is that you didn't matter. In an MMO RPG, hundreds of thousands of people in that world, your impact is very minimal. You might see or interact with just a few other people, and in a minimal way, and it doesn't amount to anything. But in the real world, the stakes just feel so much more significant. You are being scrutinized by the game itself. It's not as if the systems are watching over you. Maybe I've just become schizophrenic and paranoid by this feeling of the government and having an employer and having responsibilities. That just doesn't happen in the game. You log into the game, the responsibilities that you have are the ones that you set yourself. You log into a forum or a Discord server or any online community, and the only things that you have to do are the things that you want to do. And even then, you don't have to do what you want to do. You can simply log on and log off. You don't even have to log on to those. Participation in online society is completely optional, and there's no consequence for not participating or for being a bad actor in it. I think I'm repeating myself here because I couldn't get to the point, and that's fine. That's a learning experience. I'll learn not to do that again. In the next video, I won't do that, because in the next video, within the first 10 seconds, I'm gonna fucking shoot myself. That I don't have a gun. That's another reason why I don't like living in the real world, is because I live in the wrong country. I don't live in the United States, which is where I would need to live in order to be able to kill myself. If I lived there, I probably wouldn't have made it this far. I'm 28 years old now, and if I had have lived in the United States, I probably would have done a school shooting. I probably would have done the murder-suicide school shooting. So maybe that's a good thing. You know, maybe there's a positive reason for that. Anyway, I'm just kidding about that. I'm at least I need to say this because I'm at some point still in this delusion, hoping to eventually live in the United States. And there's almost no chance that I would get into the United States if I ever said, yeah, I would shoot up a school and I think terrorism's good and I support the Unabomber's manifesto. Those are all like major red flags for the security. So I have to try and explain that I didn't mean what I said when I said those things. I don't have any ill intent towards the individuals within a society. I don't want to cause harm to anybody. I just think the idea of the way that we have constructed things at the moment is not good. And that needs to change. And I'm not going to force anybody to change anything through any form of violence. I want to try and be as persuasive as possible and convince people that there's definitely a better way to live life that doesn't involve a bunch of bullshit jobs. I'm not the first person to do this, but I definitely think that I need to throw in a few pennies of my experience in this, because it has been eating me up not commenting on the current state of the world. I see a lot of people putting out ideas that are absolutely wrong, but that gets a lot of attention, and so I think that's quite harmful. And so as a way to try and justify my insecurities and anger at the world, I want to then direct this energy towards just taking apart the ideas that other people are putting forwards. It's a long way of saying that that's what I will try doing, because that might be more interesting and it gives more of a structure and a direction to the content of a video. The idea being basically to go and look for some source of commentary and then explain why it's correct or why it's incorrect, because that is really what I can do as the supreme authority on what is right and what is wrong. I'll be a guide, the guide to the internet, because I need to reintroduce myself to the internet, because I feel like even though I've just become very passive and watching the internet as opposed to being a part of it as I used to be, I now feel like such a stranger to it that it's painful, actually. Feeling like I don't fit in with society, but then also feeling like I don't belong in my home space of the internet. What a conundrum. Hey, that is a terrible place to be. But no, I don't want to edit these videos. I don't want to try and speed them up or make them more interesting through having a better background. Like, what difference would it make if I had a bunch of books in the background, or a map of the world, or some cool screen or green screen? It doesn't change anything. The most important thing is that the content is not seen as content, because content is filler. It's to be seen as art, and that may sound pretentious, but I think of art as just somebody's attempt to express how they feel in a concise way. Art doesn't have to be concise. There's a lot of art that's not concise, but it can still be considered art. But I'm saying the intent behind art is that it was usually built with an intent to express something, and that's how I would like to try and see what I'm doing, through the lens of it being art, which therefore makes it not content. content is just like filler, which is what I've been doing, and I want to not do it. I want to make videos, but I want them to not be filler, but I also don't want to have to edit them. So I've set the bar pretty fucking high, and now I'm even providing some level of accountability, which makes it seem stressful, which then puts me into a position where I feel forced to do it a certain way, which may be a bad idea, but it's, you know, try things out, see what happens, see what works and what doesn't work. You can't improve nothing. That's the underlying premise of what I'm getting at here. This video is like a 30-minute way of saying that there might be something that's worth saying, and that could have been maybe like a 5-second video, but next time, if I can do the point in 15 minutes, that'll be an improvement. Or maybe just don't make the video at all. Like I said, suicide, you know, it saves a lot of pain for everybody. And if the world really is as bad as I think it is, then what good would it be to attempt to try and make a video in which I say, no, the world can be better? That's ultimately the goal, right? It's optimism and hope. I know a lot of people have lost hope and optimism, myself included, but not really. Like, I think I just start to pretend that I have lost optimism, but actually, there are a lot of things to be optimistic about, and there are a lot of things to be pessimistic about. That doesn't really say anything because I'm not giving examples. I didn't want to, because the video has gone on to such a long point now that I don't feel like making any more. I'm also very thirsty. I forgot that doing this is not a normal thing to do, and that you're supposed to drink, supposed to be relaxed. I haven't been relaxed. It's one of the big issues I think that I've been making, is just trying to talk non-stop as fast as possible, try and go through as many ideas as quickly as possible, because the quicker you think, the more acute the ideas will become, and the more expressive you get, because it's like, well, I'm trading all of my expression and all of my intonation just for speed to rattle through the ideas as quickly as possible, because there are a lot of ideas that need to be got through as quickly as possible without repeating yourself. That's to say that you shouldn't be saying the same thing over and over again, stalling for time, because that's just as bad as spending a long time saying one thing slowly. Okay. It didn't work. 33 minutes of just rambling. I don't think that I don't think it has achieved what I hoped to achieve. Other than this was an experiment, and so in a roundabout way, actually, I wanted to find out what would happen if I tried to record a video for 30 minutes, or to just see what would happen. And now I know what has happened. That's all I wanted to do. And the next part is that I have to upload this. I have to. That was one of the rules that I had set for this, is that if it goes badly, don't upload it, just try again. I'm not doing it that way. I don't think that's the right way to do this. There's no incentive to try and improve if there's no consequence to the action, then there's no incentive to try and do it better. You can just get away with it sucking, or even just use it as an excuse. I can use it as an excuse to not make the next one, or to not try again. Because I would just look at the video and say, well, it really sucked. Now, that's proof that I don't have to make another one. But if I upload this, then there becomes a burden of, actually now I seriously have to make another video just to try and prove that it can be better. There's more at stake, more pressure, and that's usually good, right? That usually helps. Feeling under pressure feeling anxious and nervous, that's fucking useful. That's that's a powerful tool. Or is it? I think that it is when you put it behind you and not in front of you, so that it feels like the pressure is propelling you forwards as opposed to standing up in front of you as something that makes you feel small. I don't know what I'm saying anymore. I just want to have fun. I just want some meaning in my life. Making videos seemed like the most important thing to me. Feels the most meaningful. Gives me the most sense of joy. It makes me feel as if I'm doing the right thing, even though maybe doing the video badly is not the right thing. Still feels better than simply waiting until I know what to do, because can't improve nothing. There's it's like multiplying by zero. I'm not ever going to get better at this without the suffering. It's just shocking to have learned that after this long I still didn't manage to swing it back. I guess it's either that it's not like riding a bike in that it doesn't just come back to you, or that I was never that good in the first place, but I was just blinded by my own confidence. Because I know in the past I definitely had a very extreme case of the Dunning-Kruger effect, in which I was blinded to my own stupidity. I definitely, unironically, thought that I was very, very cool and very funny, very smart and very sexy. And now, after spending enough time living outside of that delusion, it has made it very difficult. Being this aware of how things look, to me, has become more of a curse. It could be useful to actually see things critically, because then you can see where to improve the things that are bad. But also, being this aware of how much things suck, it is a huge burden. I wish in some sense that I could kind of turn this delusion on and off, because being protected by your own delusion of confidence is very useful. It's a really good coping mechanism. It's a really good defense mechanism. Yeah, it's not nice being able to see how bad things are, and I mean to be able to see how much you suck, as in being able to recognize that what you're saying is not as interesting as you thought it was, or you're not as strong as you thought you were. You're not as you're just not as competent as you expected yourself to be. I think getting humbled like that has been the worst thing that has ever happened to me, because I've not yet recovered from it. Maybe it becomes good eventually, but after about 7 years of living this way, I definitely prefer living in the delusion. Maybe there's a way to kind of just hack that back, and maybe I don't want to do that. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe you should never do that. Maybe that's the point of that Plato's cave story, about how once you see that what you're living in has been a lie, you don't really want to go back. It's also a thing in the Matrix where the guy where the guy's eating steak and he says, yeah, I know this is bullshit, but it's the best bullshit. It's like, why didn't you take the blue pill? That's what you ask yourself. It's like, yeah, maybe it would be good to go back to living in the blue-pilled world of thinking, yeah, everything's cool, I'm awesome, I'm cool and I can just go insane and do everything and have fun, but I don't think you get results, and I don't know if results are the important thing, but that's what it comes down to, isn't it? This comparison of values, changing of values, and the perception of what you can derive pleasure from, and how that changes what you can get satisfaction from, how that changes. Maybe that's the only thing that's changed. I don't know. I haven't thought about this thoroughly enough, and at this point, I don't really want to. It's lunchtime, and I'm still making this 10-minute video. So, for realsies, I think I will truly end this, and I think maybe even end myself, unless, like I say, think of a way to do it better next time. Definitely don't want to include editing. But we'll see. I'll look back on this. I'll actually study it. That's the main thing. Is moment to moment, you can kind of see what's working and what isn't working. That is kind of useful, but putting in effort to change something, at least for me now, as a fucking old person, 28 years old, that it takes time. Like I don't know how to just like change on the dime. I'm like, oh, my voice is too low. Well, now I'll make it higher. Like that kind of really special nuance. That takes practice now. That was an example of something that doesn't take practice, but changing the way you speak and the way you think, that does take practice. I think. I don't know. I've not tried. But trying things on a camera, trying things in live real time, that's crazy. Who would do that? Like, why would you do that? That could be disastrous. So yeah, that's another thing I was trying to get into, is this confidence thing about how not being afraid to make mistakes that you're recording, that you've committed to upload. Remember, I said I have to upload this. There's no chance that I don't, even though it's just going to be 43 minutes or 45 minutes at this rate, 45 minutes of rambling incoherently, and not once attempting to do anything very differently, to not just start saying like wee woo, break out of that mold. It's a low confidence thing. When you think that everything you do is cool, you don't need to feel afraid of the consequences of doing something wrong. But now I'm in this state where I think that if I try and explain away the fact that it was wrong, then somehow that makes it better and okay. It doesn't, does it? That's stupid. Trying to do something intentionally retarded, like, what about, oh, fuck, you can't swear. That's one thing. I can't say fuck. Can't say retarded either. So I have to edit this. Does that mean this entire video's gone to waste? I don't think so. I was gonna say facial things, like trying different expressions, like, or crossing your eyes, smiling more, changing the tone of voice, anything along those lines would make it seem like a much more interesting video, that's for sure. We'll try some of that in the next one. I'll stay tuned, because there's no tuning. Stay tuned. I think that just comes from like an old TV radio thing where you would tune the station, the fucking signal receiver, to choose a different signal. But now, if somehow you ended up on this video algorithmically, get to 45 minutes in, and the algorithm doesn't recommend you the next one, I would be very surprised. Because you don't even have to tune yourself in. The algorithm tunes you into it. So if the next one does pop up, click on it and see that it'll be better. Now I've set up too much expectation and it won't live up to that. That's all it is. That's all this is. It's just false promises. I am setting up false promises because I have been set up on false promises. I thought for the first 20 years of life, the free trial period, this is great. You get to play games, eat food, and go around in the world. There are trees, there's sunshine, there's grass. This is amazing. Get to just have fun, play with your friends. It's incredible. There's cartoons, there's Beyblades. There's tons of amazing things. I love being alive. It's so much fun. And then the free trial ends. Gotta fucking wake up and go to work and make money and pay taxes. And all of that optimism just goes. It's like, well, that's it. You do this 35 years, and then when you're too old to enjoy yourself anymore, you get to retire. Yeah, that's the false promise of life. The idea, to steal that John Steinbeck quote, that everybody is a temporarily embarrassed millionaire. Yeah, thinking that, well, yeah, I'm not like everyone else. I'll, once this finishes, just get to making a few million casually and don't have to do this stupid. Why would you work in an office? If you don't like the work you're doing, do different work. But there isn't good work. Like there isn't work you enjoy doing. If you enjoy doing it, it's not work. But to see that there are really not that many opportunities people get to do that. I think it's a lie that people have been told this. Once again, a false promise by philosophers and these money advice people, financial advisors, not like financial advisors in the boring type of work, but the people who are financial influencers. That's a topic I want to talk about in another video. Influencers. People who try to influence you in a certain way, how they try and sell you this lie that if you just work harder, or you just quit doing your job, or do a side hustle, make money on the side of what you're doing, and this kind of mindset that it's only because you're not trying hard enough that you don't get to catch a break in the world. This idea that everybody could be a millionaire, it's just wrong. Because there's a distribution of wealth and a distribution of work that needs doing, people to do the work, and money supply. I'm not going to talk about this because I don't have all of the ideas correctly laid out to make it interesting. But needless to say, the false promise that people get set up on, or that I think Hollywood movies and childish understanding, an immature understanding of the world, it does not prepare you to approach this properly. And so, without repeating myself again, that shock is false promises. I think I've been set up to set them up because I was set up in one. That's maybe the interesting part of this, is that's feasible. But yeah, watch the next one or don't. I don't care. If I can't watch this, then I wouldn't expect anyone to, and no one knows anything. It's the internet. You are free to do what you want, except you're not. That's also the point that I'm getting at. But yeah, I'll cover more things in the next one, or maybe I won't. Who knows? the future is uncertain. That's the most certain thing that we can certainly be certain about. And yeah, try not to kill myself.